Welcome to this gripping tale of betrayal, trust, and redemption. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below with your thoughts and theories. Your feedback fuels us to bring you more compelling stories. When Ethan received an invitation to his wife Sarah's office party, he was genuinely excited. Sarah had worked tirelessly for years at her job, and this event was to celebrate a major milestone in her career. Ethan couldn't have been prouder, or so he thought. The party was grander than Ethan imagined, filled with music, laughter, and an air of sophistication. Sarah introduced him to her colleagues, each one praising her talent and dedication. But there was one person who stood out, a man named Daniel. Ethan couldn't help but notice the way Sarah seemed overly comfortable around him. Their private jokes and fleeting glances planted a seed of doubt in his mind. Ethan brushed off his uneasiness as jealousy. Sarah had always been honest and loyal, or so he believed. But when Sarah excused herself to discuss a project with Daniel midway through the party, Ethan's instincts kicked in. Quietly, Ethan followed them. As he rounded the corner, he saw Sarah and Daniel talking in hushed tones. The laughter between them was different, intimate. Ethan shook his head and walked away, deciding not to ruin the evening with baseless accusations. The following day, Ethan's doubts lingered. He decided to check Sarah's phone while she was in the shower. What he found sent shockwaves through his system, an endless chain of texts between Sarah and Daniel. They weren't discussing work, they were planning private meetups. Ethan's heart pounded. Could this be what it looked like? He saved the messages to his own phone, determined to gather more evidence before confronting her. For the next few days, Ethan watched Sarah's behavior more closely, noticing subtle changes. A new perfume, extra time spent on her appearance, and vague excuses for staying late at work. Then came the breaking point. One evening, Sarah told Ethan she had another late meeting at the office. Ethan knew it was a lie. He followed her discreetly, his heart heavy with dread. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Sarah meeting Daniel at a cozy cafe far from their home. Ethan's world crumbled. The woman he loved, the life they'd built together. It was all a facade. But Ethan wasn't the type to react impulsively. He decided to bide his time and plan his next move carefully. Ethan sat in his car, staring at Sarah and Daniel through the cafe window. Their laughter, the subtle touch of her hand on his arm, it all felt like a cruel joke. But Ethan wasn't ready to confront Sarah yet. He needed undeniable proof, something that would leave no room for her to twist the truth. Over the next few days, Ethan transformed into a quiet investigator. He combed through Sarah's phone records and email accounts. What he found only deepened his heartbreak. There were messages filled with flirtation, intimate photos, and even plans for a weekend getaway under the pretense of a work retreat. Ethan realized this wasn't a fleeting mistake. It was a calculated betrayal. But amidst his anger, he stayed calm, knowing that acting on emotion would only weaken his position. He decided to reach out to a trusted friend, Marcus, who was both a lawyer and a close confidant. Marcus advised him to gather concrete evidence and document everything. If you decide to confront her or take legal action, you'll need proof, Marcus said. Taking the advice to heart, Ethan installed a small camera in the living room and began recording conversations. He also started saving screenshots of their text exchanges and tracking Sarah's location through a shared app she'd forgotten about. What Ethan discovered broke his heart further. Sarah had not only betrayed him with Daniel but had also belittled their marriage in conversations with her lover. "He's so predictable," one message read. "He'd never suspect anything. He still thinks I'm his perfect wife." Ethan's resolve hardened. This wasn't just about infidelity, it was about a lack of respect and love. Then came the final piece of evidence. Ethan overheard a phone call between Sarah and Daniel, where they laughed about their upcoming weekend together. "Ethan thinks I'm at a conference," Sarah said, her tone dripping with arrogance. Ethan knew he had everything he needed. But he wasn't just going to confront Sarah. He wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. He began planning his response, one that would expose the truth in a way she couldn't deny. But even as he plotted, a part of him still hoped for an explanation, some shred of humanity from the woman he'd once loved deeply. Ethan spent the next few days perfecting his plan. He didn't want a messy argument or a shouting match that could be dismissed as a moment of anger. No, this confrontation needed to be deliberate and impactful, leaving no room for manipulation or excuses. With all the evidence he had gathered, Ethan approached his trusted friend Marcus again, seeking advice on how to protect himself legally and emotionally during the confrontation. Marcus suggested having witnesses or recording the encounter, ensuring that Sarah couldn't spin the narrative in her favor later. Ethan decided to use Sarah's upcoming conference weekend as the moment to confront her. Knowing she planned to meet Daniel, Ethan took two critical steps. First, he secured a reservation at the same hotel where they would be staying. Second, he informed Daniel's wife Claire about the affair. When Ethan called Claire, her initial reaction was disbelief, followed by heartbreak. "I thought something was off," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Thank you for telling me. I deserve to know the truth." Together, Ethan and Claire devised a plan to expose the affair at the hotel, ensuring both Sarah and Daniel faced the consequences of their actions. As the weekend approached, Ethan felt a mixture of dread and determination. He wasn't sure how Sarah would react, but he knew the truth had to come out. He rehearsed his words, preparing for the moment when he would confront her. The day finally arrived. Ethan watched from the lobby as Sarah and Daniel checked in, laughing and holding hands as if they had no care in the world. The sight was painful, but it only fueled his resolve. Ethan waited until they were settled in their room before taking the next step. He and Claire approached the hotel staff, explaining the situation and requesting access to the room. After some convincing and showing proof of the affair, the staff agreed to accompany them. When the door opened, Sarah and Daniel's faces froze in shock. Sarah stammered, "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," Ethan replied calmly, though his voice carried the weight of his emotions. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Sarah and Daniel stood frozen, their faces pale and full of dread. Ethan, accompanied by Claire and the hotel staff, remained composed, though his clenched fists revealed the storm brewing inside him. "Ethan, this isn't what it looks like," Sarah began, her voice trembling. "Then what is it, Sarah?" Ethan asked, his tone sharp but controlled. "Because to me, it looks like my wife and her conference partner have been enjoying a little more than work." Daniel tried to interject, "Look man, this is a misunderstanding." Claire cut him off, stepping forward with tears in her eyes but steel in her voice. "A misunderstanding? You've been lying to me for months, Daniel. Don't even try to deny it. I have the messages to prove it." Sarah's eyes darted between Ethan and Claire, searching for an escape. "Ethan, please, let's talk about this privately," she pleaded. "There's no privacy in betrayal, Sarah," Ethan replied coldly. "You made this public the moment you started sneaking around." The tension in the room was unbearable as Sarah tried to explain herself, spinning tales of feeling neglected and misunderstood. But Ethan wasn't having it. "So your solution was to run to my business partner?" he asked, his voice rising. "You didn't think to talk to me? To work on our marriage?" Claire, standing beside Ethan, addressed Daniel. "And you? How could you destroy two families for what? A fling? Do you even realize the damage you've done?" Daniel remained silent, looking at the floor, while Sarah continued to stammer excuses. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. "I'm done, Sarah," he said firmly. "I deserve someone who values honesty and loyalty. Consider this the end." Sarah's face crumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Ethan, please. I made a mistake. Don't throw everything away." "You threw it away, Sarah," Ethan replied. "I'm just picking up the pieces." Turning to the hotel staff, Ethan thanked them for their cooperation and left the room, followed by Claire. Together they walked down the hallway, leaving Sarah and Daniel to face the consequences of their actions. The ride home from the hotel was quiet. Ethan sat in the back seat of a cab, staring out the window as the city lights blurred past. Claire was beside him, her arms crossed tightly, lost in her own thoughts. "I'm sorry you had to go through this," Ethan said softly, breaking the silence. Claire shook her head. "Don't apologize. We've both been lied to by people we trusted the most. If anything, I'm glad we found out the truth." Ethan nodded, but the weight of betrayal was heavy on his heart. The woman he had vowed to spend his life with had torn apart everything they had built together. Yet, amidst the pain, he felt an odd sense of relief. The truth, no matter how painful, was better than living a lie. Back at his apartment, Ethan began to pack Sarah's belongings. Each item he placed in a box brought a mix of memories, some happy, some tainted now by the knowledge of her betrayal. Claire offered to stay and help, but he insisted she take time to process her own emotions. "Call me if you need anything," she said, her voice gentle. "We'll get through this." As the days turned into weeks, Ethan took the necessary steps to move forward. He met with a lawyer to discuss the divorce, ensuring that everything was handled professionally and with dignity. He didn't want to stoop to anger or pettiness, even though he had every right to feel those emotions. Sarah, on the other hand, was relentless in her attempts to reach out. She left voicemails, sent emails, and even tried showing up at his workplace. Each time, Ethan remained firm. He had made his decision, and there was no going back. "You can't just throw us away," Sarah yelled one afternoon when she found him outside their former home. "You threw us away, Sarah," Ethan replied, his voice steady. "I'm just doing what's best for me now." Her pleas fell on deaf ears. Ethan had found his strength in the face of heartbreak, and he wasn't about to let her manipulate him again. Meanwhile, Claire had also made progress in her own life. She had ended things with Daniel, moved into her own place, and started therapy to heal from the betrayal. She and Ethan kept in touch, supporting each other as they rebuilt their lives. Ethan's journey is far from over, but he's learning to find strength in himself. Will Sarah finally accept the consequences of her actions, or does she have more tricks up her sleeve? Stay tuned for the final part, where we see how Ethan and Claire's stories conclude. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.